The Avatar sequel, Avatar 2, The Way of Water, was released this past weekend, 13 years after the original came out, 12 and a half years after everyone forgot that the original ever existed. It was a brief moment in time when millions of people were somehow duped into believing that Avatar was a good film, but the fever broke rather suddenly, and most of those who had fallen under its spell quickly realized the whole thing was just Fern Gully as reimagined by the Blue Man Group. Not exactly a plot twist, therefore, to tell you that the sequel fizzled at the box office on its first weekend of release. It fizzled with $134 million over the weekend, to be precise, which seems like a lot of money to qualify as a flop until you realize that they spent $1 billion making this thing and poured hundreds of millions into marketing, so that anything less than a historic box office haul would be a disappointment. And in this case, the movie fell under even the most modest projections. Now, I, for one, am quite pleased with this result. I like it when bad movies perform poorly, and this is a bad movie. It may have impressive special effects, but then there really isn't anything that is actually impressive about special effects anymore. I'll never understand people these days who are like, well, great special effects, so what? If you have $1 billion to make a movie, we expect that the CGI will be top of the line. That's just basic level stuff. What matters is the story, and if the first Avatar was a rehash of what a dozen other films had already done and done better, then Avatar 2 is a rehash of a rehash. There's nothing new about this kind of cynical recycling, of course, but it's always worse coming from James Cameron, because although he hasn't had an original idea in like 30 years, he still considers himself to be a genius storyteller. And so both the first Avatar and this reheated version are epically, absurdly long. Like this one's almost 3.5 hours long, as Cameron indulges every narcissistic, showy impulse, refusing to cut a single scene or a single line of dialogue, because he believes that the entire thing is a work of staggering genius, even though it's literally just Pocahontas, but not as good. On top of that, Cameron happens to be one of the wokest directors currently working in Hollywood. Avatar is, of course, an environmentalism allegory about the perils of colonialism. It's not my interpretation, that's what he says it is. And if the wokeness wasn't clear enough, Cameron's been out on the trail promoting the film by ranting against the evils of testosterone, as we covered in a recent Daily Cancellation. He claimed that testosterone is a poison that must be purged from the bloodstream. And then on Friday, in an interview with Variety, he bragged that Avatar is setting a new standard for female empowerment because it features a pregnant female warrior. So from the Daily Wire, it says, director James Cameron said in a recent interview that his upcoming movie, Avatar: The Way of Water, is the most empowering movie for women because one of the characters is a pregnant warrior. The movie, which debuted in theaters across the U.S. on Friday, continues where the first movie left off. And in this film, one of the main characters, Neytiri, is pregnant. Cameron made the remarks about Neytiri during an interview with Variety when he was asked why it was important to have Neytiri and another character be pregnant in the movie. He said, quote, "Everybody's always talking about female empowerment, but what is such a big part of a woman's life that we as men don't experience? And I thought, well, if you're really going to go all the way down the rabbit hole of female empowerment, let's have a female warrior who's 6 months pregnant in battle. I thought, let's take the real boundaries off. To me, it was the last bastion that you don't see. Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, all these other amazing women come up, but they're not moms and they're not pregnant while they're fighting evil." Yes, he's gone down the rabbit hole of female empowerment. But is this really all the way down the rabbit hole? What about a pregnant female in a wheelchair in battle? How about a pregnant, blind trans woman with one leg, epilepsy, and a diagnosed anxiety disorder in battle? Now, it's not clear how any of this actually would be empowering. In fact, it's not clear how the exploits of a fictional character in a CGI universe could ever empower anyone, regardless, pregnant or not. But this is what empowerment has become. For the record, even if this is a fictional universe, there is actually nothing empowering about sending pregnant women off to fight battles. A truly empowered pregnant woman is going to prioritize protecting her unborn child and therefore is not going to put herself in a situation where both she and the child are very likely to be hurt. But this is the Hollywood idea of empowerment. The empowered person is the person who acts like anything other than what they are. The person who rejects their fundamental duties and responsibilities. The empowered woman is then the woman who acts like a man, while the empowered man is the man who acts like a woman. This is the empowerment they sell us, which is empowerment turned on its head. It's the opposite of empowerment, which is the essence of wokeness. Everything is the opposite of what it ought to be. And yet, even with all this effort to be woke, The film still is not woke enough. Here's the headline from Newsweek. Avatar faces calls for boycott over accusations of racism. The article then explains, Director James Cameron is facing allegations of Native American and indigenous cultural appropriation over the themes and imagery in his latest blockbuster, Avatar: The Way of Water. Like his predecessor, the sequel centers on a story about colonizers taking over land from tribes, and Cameron's telling the colonizers are humans who need a new inhabitable planet because Earth's resources are becoming increasingly depleted. Also, like its predecessor, the new Avatar film is being accused of using an amalgamation of histories of various indigenous cultures for a film that features a largely white cast. Among those upset by Cameron's film is Hugh Begay, a Native American influencer and co-chair of Indigenous Pride LA. Do not watch Avatar: The Way of Water, Begay wrote on Twitter on Sunday. Join natives and other indigenous groups around the world in boycotting this horrible and racist film. Begay also said that indigenous cultures were appropriated in a harmful manner to satisfy a white man's, quote, savior complex. Another Twitter user whose critiques of Avatar have gained attention is Autumn Asher Blackdeer, an assistant professor in the Graduate School of Social Work at the University of Denver. Why watch a movie about blue aliens when you could just support actual indigenous people and our struggle for clean water here on Earth? Yes, we do exist, Blackdeer wrote. She followed up with a thread listing sci-fi films made by indigenous people. So that's right. Avatar commits appropriation. They do have a point. I mean, after all, James Cameron, he does cast mostly white actors to portray people of color in the film. Now, it's true, the color of the people in this case is blue, and they're not even people, but that's irrelevant. He could have at least, here's all I'm saying, he could have made the effort to try to travel to another solar system and find actual blue aliens to fill these roles. He could have tried. Didn't even try. Instead, he just took the easy way out, put actors in blueface instead. Now, the criticism here is obviously ridiculous. What's more, they're attacking James Cameron for somehow negating or minimizing the struggles of, quote, indigenous people, when the entire movie is one long, overly simplistic, childish retelling of the settlement of the New World wherein white man bad, native people good. This is exactly the version of history that these activists want us to accept. They demand that we accept it. And James Cameron has spent billions of dollars creating not one, but two pieces of overwrought propaganda to deliver just that message. And they're still mad. That's how it works. Of course, the game is rigged, especially if you're a white man. The woke are never satisfied. Whatever you do, it will not be enough. Whatever you do, you should have done something else. The woke are never happy. They make demands that cannot be satisfied. That's because they don't want to be satisfied. They just want the demands. They don't want the satisfaction of those demands. They want the demands. Trying to please them, then, is a fool's errand. And James Cameron is just that sort of fool, which is why he is canceled for, I think, like the second time in a week. And that'll do it for this portion of the show as we move over to the members block. Hope to see you there. If not, talk to you tomorrow. Godspeed.